So we're going to talk a little bit about Hasbro and the Bronies, and today we're celebrating. What? Okay. I need to push it. Wow, yes, we figured out technology. Wonderful. But Hasbro and the Bronies is an interesting one because today, not only are we going to celebrate 5 years of PonyCon Holland, but it's also, like any celebration, it's an opportunity to look back where you came from. What were your origins? And well, it's hard to talk about our origin without talking about Hasbro. Hasbro started everything back in 1980 when they decided to make the very first episode of My Little Pony, but nothing prepared them for what was going to happen. About 30 years later, we have Bronies and even PonyCon Holland. And if Hasbro never starts this first episode, none of this convention even takes place. So rightfully for them, it is a little bit of a surprise. And we're suddenly here, and what do they do with us? And basically, from Hasbro's point of view, we just suddenly appeared overnight, quite literally, in the span of a few months. And what was their response to us? Well, let's take a step back. Who is actually Hasbro? When we're talking about, oh, Hasbro does this and Hasbro does that, who is Hasbro? Let's see, Hasbro is, we're going to describe Hasbro in like just about 3 statements, because most of the things that Hasbro does in relation to us, in relation to anyone, usually bounces back to one of 3 reasons. The first one is they're an entertainment company with about 1,800 brands. That is a ridiculous amount of a number of brands, and My Little Pony is just a little bit of a fish in this massive sea of brands. Of course, My Little Pony is big, but of course this also means if like a certain brand in this pool of brands is doing terribly, it pulls the rest down a little bit, and that can of course mean that when Hasbro has to cut corners, they're looking to the other brands. Reason number 2, it is a giant company, a big company with 6,000 employees. I think we have around 600, 700 people on this premises. So imagine like 10 times as many people, and they're all working for the same company. At that point, you have people that you're working with that you don't even know exist. You're working with departments that you don't even know exist. It is a massive company that is difficult to communicate with that many people and get anything done. And 40 countries, that rightfully makes them a big international entity. And thirdly, they made $4 billion in revenue in 2025. Seems pretty good. Actually, wrong button. Actually, it was $5 billion in 2024, so that's, oh my gosh, I'm getting trolled here. Minus 20% in just about a year. That is something serious for a company to lose this much money in the span of a year. And rightfully, they're looking to find a way to sort of bounce back from something like this. And we're going to talk about how they may potentially do that, because today not only are we, of course, going to talk about our origin as Bronies, where we came from, but also what the future might hold and what Hasbro might have to do. And there's a few things that we already know that are going to be coming next year, so let's buckle up. So Hasbro's response to us existing was, let's study the horse people, quite literally. A study was made by Hasbro. It is an internal document that, like many internal things, found its way onto the internet. It's no longer officially internal for them. And this document is titled, this ridiculous, insanely long title, an inspiring lookbook for creative development, documenting the story of how our franchise has been redefined by a deeply passionate new audience. That is talking about us. Oh, yeah. So, who do you think this document is meant for? This brings us back immediately to the first statement where we said that there's 1,800 brands. This fame, this sort of passion that we've brought for My Little Pony, of course, if they can replicate this, if they can do this for any other brands, that would be massively important for them, and of course want to know how to do it again. And so they collected a few things in this. The first thing that we're going to have, there's a lot of art in this document. It is about 60 pages. We're no way going to go through all of that, but half of it is just random pieces of art, memes, videos, animations. They collected everything and just took a peek at it and see what we do. And there's a good chance they drew some inspiration from some of the stuff that they found. Second, there's going to be a little bit of an analysis about Who are we? What are Bronies? How do they think? What do they do? What kind of people, what kind of fans are these? And thirdly, and I think that's the important one, how do they deal with us in the future? What is 2026 going to look like with people like us being fans of their brand? Well, let's start in an interesting and basic place. And the first thing is, yeah, Pot Goes the Pony, that is sort of the name that they've given this project, is to figure out how pop culture works. And in their document, they describe it as follows. That we have a collective intelligence, that we like to make, that we basically work together. Collaborations and working together is like a big thing for us. Secondly, we like to make things. We have so many different kinds of creative people, be it musicians, be it artists, you name it. People come with all sort of things to make fan art. And of course that's interesting for them because they want to see, what we do. And thirdly, the show inspires us. That's the big one. A lot of things that we do in life, a lot of ways that we sort of carry ourselves end up being inspired by these 6 ponies. And by these 6 ponies, at least here at the bottom right, you see it's talking about My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, so specifically talking about G4 here. And it's interesting for them to see just how it inspired us, of course, because if they want to inspire us in the future, they need to know how we work. So, but these 3 statements on their own, to me, they seem a little too corporate. So let's translate this a little bit into, words that make sense. It means that we have a great community, that we love expressing our passion, and that the show has influenced us. And mind you, this is not a statement that I came up with. This is inside of Hasbro's document. This is what Hasbro thinks we are. And I think that's pretty accurate, mind you. So the fact that they come to such a statement means they've done their homework. And let me put this document into your mind. Someone at Hasbro must have been paid, or multiple people have been paid to go out onto the internet, what are Bronies, write things down that they found, and whatnot. That seems like the dream job, is to just go out onto the internet and see what these random people are like. And I think that's a pretty interesting task to do. And yeah, that means you have to start at our history. And going forward here, you're going to see a lot of artwork, a lot of memes on the side that seem random. Not that random. They appear in this leaked document, so we're going to accompany this a little bit. And where does our history begin? Well, our history begins in the year of 2010, October, 15 years ago, mind you, right, this month. And that's basically when G4 launched, but we're not going to read every one of these. I'm just going to go over the most important ones that we have here. In December, so 2 months basically after the show launched, the term Bronies became a thing, and we sort of like coined Bronies as a term. And just a couple of months later, in February, that's a big one, we have celebrity fans. We have Lady Gaga and Katy Perry as among of a couple of celebrities that sort of acknowledge that we exist. And this is going to be important later because Hasbro, of course, also knows this, and they took advantage of that. And let's go all the way to 2011 in June. That's about 8 months after the first episode aired. My Little Pony, for a couple of months, or for a couple of weeks, was ruling the internet as #1 meme in June 2011. Just for a little while, Bronies were the most popular thing on the internet. We made it all the way to the top in just such a short span, and Hasbro wrote it all down. Again, that's the impressive part. They wrote all this stuff down, and that's important. And here we have what Hasbro considers Bronies. This is also taken from the same document. Originally implied for male fans, the term Brony has become gender neutral. That's an important one. Gender neutral in describing any older fans of a show. So this is also important because their original target audience is not considered part of this. So they see us as a separate thing. That's an important one. So they know they need to treat us a little bit different than their target audience. That is basically what this sort of tells us. This is us, them seeing us as something different. And what else do they see about us? Is our interactions with Hasbro. Let's sort of dive into how Hasbro and the Brony fandom have interacted. And one of the earliest interactions Derpy, and Vinyl Scratch. Very quickly, we decided that these two ponies are super amazing. We should make them popular. And what was Hasbro's response? Well, Hasbro, being who they are, were like, let's give you more. They quite literally leaned into it. And in their document, after the conclusion of season 1, that is still 2011, so basically just around that time when we became famous, Hasbro announced that in season 2, or one of the background characters was going to be Derpy, and another pony character sporting neon colors, wearing sunglasses and manning a DJ mixer, was given the stage name of DJ Pone 3 by fans. That's not their own name, that's just them admitting they used the name we came up with. That is our name making it into their show. And that is an acknowledgement when such a massive company is like, you know what, we like them so much, let's take their name and put it into the show. It's pretty big commitment. And they took it a bit further at the bottom here. You see that this was then used for an Equestria Girls hub ad, and I think we should take a look at that ad. And here we go. What? Doesn't play. Oh. I'll pause the YouTube chat in the background with that. What?
And you are great.
Okay. Okay. How do we do that?
Oh, cut out of it. No, it doesn't open?
No. Wonderful technical difficulties. Okay. Okay, let's try it again. Let's try this again. Sorry about that.
1 moment.
Still not doing it. Okay. No.
No? Oh, it's just very quiet.
Okay.
Let me see if I can do this.
What do we do? Does it not work? Okay.
Yeah. Try playing it out. I'll see if I can do it here.
Yeah. Okay, they're almost let's make it a little louder. Sometimes these things happen. Okay, how about now?
You can watch all your favorite shows on the Hub.
It doesn't go any louder.
It does. I just have to find it.
Is this seat available? Okay, thanks.
Now I want you to listen to what he says here. There's the name again. Our name in Hasbro's ad. Our name in Hasbro's ad. And mind you, if you paid attention, of course, this was a remix on Katy Perry's California Girls. Of course, no coincidence. Now that we know that Katy Perry endorsed us at the beginning, they had to approach this person and pay them a decent amount to be able to make this. They invested in us. They put money into the pot to appease us, and that is a pretty decent commitment for any company to go this far and to be like, hey, you know what? We respect you this much. Let's put the stuff out there that you like so much, and it just shows you that maybe Hasbro seems to care a whole lot about us. But I think out of another way to look at our interactions is the voices about the fandom. This is also something Hasbro's collected in their document because again, they want to be able to, share how are Bronies, what do people think about the Bronies, what is the public opinion, and we have a couple of these. We have the creator of Equestria Daily, and he wrote that, or he said that if someone told him that if it was going to make pony blogs 7 months ago, that he would have called them insane. We have the voice of Lauren Foss, the creator of My Little Pony, making a statement about us, and the fact that we were open-minded and cool enough and secure enough to embrace these feelings and talk about the show and love it as much as we do and spread this love and do it openly, like that we stand for it, that we celebrate it, that we come to these conventions, that we express our emotions and just show it off, and that is something that impressed her. On the right here, we have a certain pony game developer, and he basically is someone in the fandom who unfortunately doesn't make games anymore. But he basically described that he likes the way that these ponies interact, the way that they sort of like face issues like we do. And he thinks that's a pretty good way, and it's nice to see that Hasbro collects these sort of good voices, and this of course means that people think nice about us, that if Hasbro is talking about Bronies, that usually means something good because people seem to have a pretty good opinion about us. But I say the biggest Hasbro Brony interaction comes down to one single episode, and that is episode 100 of Generation 4. Whoever has not watched this episode yet, please do that for your own sake. On the right side here, we have a bunch of people clad in horse masks, and this screenshot did appear in that very episode. And these are not just any random people, this also happens to be the very creators of that episode. And just for anyone who is not caught up with this, we're going to take a look at a tiny clip from this and just recognize how many things in this episode we potentially have inspired. So, Vinyl Scratch and Octavia being roommates. Who may have inspired that? Another thing we may have come
all
up
these
with.
wedding songs are so standard. I want Matilda in 2020.
Also the characters, the way that they sort of carry themselves, again, inspired by how we basically wanted Octavia and such to be. Hasbro basically took a picture of that and was like, let's do it. So I'm just gonna jump in a little bit further here. There we go, that's good enough. Of course, the bass cannon, a wonderful thing that also came sort of from us, and basically Hasbro decided to keep going, but I like the chaos. The chaos in this episode also sort of a pretty good reference to how we sometimes tend to do things in unintended ways.
Stop! I'm going to be late for the wedding!
Alright, take a look at some of the background characters that we're about to run into here. All of these are characters that we have made famous. We have these ponies here. Then of course, we're about to talk about one of the more difficult characters to talk about, Button Mash, the Jam Pony. Then we have the next ones. I think these are some of the more interesting ones. These are called the Brony dudes, according to Hasbro. It's something we apparently also like a lot. We have Colgate, who we gave a different name. We have Berry Punch, who we declared to drink a whole bunch. Also something we came up with. Twilight came in what I think is one of the best segments ever.
What is life? What is life? Is it nothing more than an endless search for a cutie mark? It's a cutie mark, but a constant reminder that we're all only one bugbear attack away from oblivion. And what of the poor Gator? Flank, forever blank, destined to an existential swim down the river of life to an unknowable destiny.
Something like that might work.
Yeah, look at them, dedicating an entire episode to us. I mean, this company must really seem to love us. There's possibly nothing that could go wrong when Hasbro ever interacts with the fandom. Oh, this is also another form Hasbro and the Brony fandom has interacted with. I did not make an entire list of every single thing, but I'm just picking out a few notable ones. We have in 2012, a plushie maker was taken down. That's something I didn't know they did, but that's an interesting one. We're going to talk about why they do that. 2013 and 2017, Fighting is Magic was taken down twice. Not many people know they got taken down twice. Because after the first time, they were like, you know, let's change the game a little bit, make the assets look a little bit different, and it still wasn't enough. Still wasn't enough for them to be like, you know, we accept you now. No, they got taken down a second time. Hasbro versus Jan Animation started in 2014, one of the bigger ones. In 2016, they decided to go after an archive site, and what they basically did is they got all of the G4 episodes and decided to distribute them, so that is a little bit difficult. And one of the more recent ones, another pony game got taken down. And yeah, the big question, why? Why does Hasbro do that? Yes?
Like you said, like they take down a plush maker from right of actually there was I think some good plush makers.
That's true.
Yeah.
So the reason is, why would Hasbro do this? A company that dedicates ads, advertisements, and writing to a show, turn around and then take us down. Well, this is the one time we're actually going to have to make a little bit of a defense for Hasbro, because United States trademark law. Trademark law is absolutely one of the more annoying things to have to deal with. And unfortunately, this isn't just United States, this is something that exists across many countries in similar ways. I sort of come from the business side of things, so I have a little bit of a view on this. And interestingly enough, the statement that we see here was taken down from Equestria Daily itself, so this is someone from our side admitting to this existing. And basically the way this works in a nutshell, if you as a company become aware of someone profiting off of something you have and you do not do something against them, you can lose your trademark against this. So in this case with the plushie maker, it says here at the bottom that yeah, the ramifications for this go beyond it just being able to sell plushies. Like if they wouldn't have done something against this plushie maker, and here you see in yellow profiting. If that someone doesn't make profit, Hasbro doesn't have to do anything. But the second they make profit, and Hasbro doesn't do anything against it, they can lose right to do that. So in this specific case, there was a chance for them to be able to not make plushies. Jan Animations, I think, is a special case because his style became so good it literally was almost indistinguishable from the show, and they could have very well stopped Hasbro from making episodes altogether. So from their side of view, it's also a sort of annoying thing because we like these ponies and we like to make art about them, but the question is, oh, damn it, can they let us do that without them losing trademark rights to the thing that they're making? And that is a difficult thing. Of course they want to be able to give us plushies, episodes and all that, but if the law decides to, you know, take these things away, that of course also is sort of tricky, yeah?
Hello, Full Dude for Horse News. I have one question.
Yeah.
Why have they not gone after other plushie makers? Because but whenever they do, it's very far and few between. What's the criteria for deciding which ones to go after and which ones not to?
So for them to decide where to go after, they pick it off of profit. Like if plushies are not sort of something they're planning on doing, like if this is something sort of recent, like G4 plushies, that may have not been so much on their mind. But in 2012, when the brand basically was just starting, and they were, you know, thinking about making plushies and all these things, it was important for them to actually protect the very thing that they were producing.
Of course, but there were other, obviously other for-profit plushie makers at the time. So why were they not taken down?
The second it gets to alike to Hasbro's products, they have to act like if it's different enough, then Hasbro doesn't care, and they can be like, you know, this is sort of its own thing. They're doing their own style. That's the most important one. Yeah.
Do you think that Hasbro wants to protect it? What they have in sense like they look around it and take it down, or do they do the bare minimum for it not to be a legal issue, so they might stop?
You're actually right on that. There's some truth to that because specifically in the Case versus Jan animations, the resolution was that some of his videos are still allowed to be on his channel despite everything. Hasbro didn't have to give him that right, but they did it anyway because they didn't want to totally be mean to him. But also the reason this entire conflict happened is because basically the legal department did one thing and the marketing department that was supposed to interact with him did something completely different and they didn't know about each other interacting. So yeah, over there.
It is a similar story in the Lego case, why the quality of Lego has gone down over the years, and it's basically law, trademark, and they have to actually give profits away if they do something like, say, including Harry Potter or Marvel, and they benefit less from that.
That's true.
That is a similar story. I just realized that.
Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately, a lot of companies are trying to protect what they're making, and it sort of makes sense for them to do because no one. Yeah, really.
So that's why I think in that case also Lauren Forst. Remember her? So she was leaving. I think that was right after 3 seasons.
That's true.
Probably Jan got to be good.
And yeah, she
that's true.
basically was then decided to move on to other things. But yeah, it's a difficult topic for them, and it's interesting to sort of see how Hasbro sort of has to do some of these things that they're doing, even if they don't want to do it. So now that we've sort of had this sort of dive into the legal part, let's go back into some fun things in this document. And Hasbro apparently has figured out our favorite ponies. Also something listed in their very document. And well, let's take a look at this interesting little ranking. Number one without question is Derpy Hoos, which they did according to searches, according to things that they found online. We have DJ Pro 3, without question, also one of the ones that we basically started making famous from literally day one.
Totally.
Doctor Who's has also been out there since forever. Specifically, the whole Doctor Who fandom is also kind of interested in this specific character. A lot of things they do. I swear that thing is going to drive me insane. This one is an interesting one. Lyra and Bonbon specifically, not only the individual characters, but us making them, be a thing together was then later also acknowledged. Yeah.
I know there are also the original names of the ponies, but do actually Hasbro know that they gave them also these fandom names?
Yeah, sometimes they use them. Sometimes they use them specifically with Derpy and DJ Pone 3, as they used it. They used our names. And sometimes they don't use them. Like if you take a look at the credits of episode 100, they use their own names on some of those characters. Moving along, Trixie apparently super famous in this fandom as well. Then let's move forward. This is a controversial one because he was basically famous at the beginning. A whole bunch of people talked about him, but then he sort of went quiet. But still, apparently, a lot of art goes around from this character, which is pretty impressive to me. We have Big Macintosh. Literally, look at this. They took a picture of someone having a Big Macintosh shoe that apparently went in there, which I think is impressive. We have these guys. These are the Brony dudes, is what the Hasbro calls them. We also seen them in this quick brief of episode 100. But there's
they both together.
Yeah, they both together. That's right. But this is the one that sort of surprised me. An OC. That's right. OCs are also sort of something Hasbro takes a look at, and that is something they sort of evolved into doing a little bit more come Generation 5. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but they sort of decided to incorporate these characters a little bit more as they went forward. And how they did that, we're going to talk about that in just a moment. So now we're going to take a look at this sort of art collection that Hasbro has made about us, all the things that they found. And there's a lot of things that are popular amongst us that appear in here. So fan art, I decided to go into making categories of this because there was just so much stuff in there. I decided to see what's the most popular thing, the most popular kind of art that they have. And we have a lot of crossovers. We have, of course, now Moon with the beard. We have Star Wars and Sweetie Belle. We have Matrix. And then we have the Transformer, Pinkie Pie. We have Star Trek over here. And then we have Pokemon with ponies. And it's interesting to see that all these crossovers exist, and most importantly, that Hasbro knows about them. So they try to also sometimes incorporate other brands that exist and sort of appease us again. So comics is another category that is very highly represented. These are fan comics that Hasbro has found. I don't know their complete origin, if I'm honest, but these are sort of some samples that appear in this document, and it's interesting to see that Hasbro seems to be collecting them. Another kind of art that they like to collect is characters that we've developed. That's an interesting one, because a lot of these characters that exist, we have given them personalities, we've given them names, we've given them background hobbies, we've given them background stories and things that they should and shouldn't be doing, and so on. And Hasbro, of course, took a look at this and wrote some of this down. Of course, Button Mash being a pretty interesting example. Then let's move to another kind of category, games. Games was a big one for Hasbro. Here we have RPG Maker games, another thing Hasbro decided to collect. And what we see here, RPG Maker, is basically a software that allows you to make games in a super simplified way. And it's just interesting to see that Hasbro found this stuff. This is some of the stuff that's difficult to find on the internet. Another kind of games, Minecraft. They're super interested in Minecraft, apparently. On the left side here, we see PonyCraft, which is a mod to make you become a pony, yes?
At this point, I'm actually surprised they haven't pumped out a skin patch for them, like available via Minecraft Marketplace. Using the main 6.
Yeah, that's interesting. They have changed the way that they have approached games with us, because Roblox is sort of like the new thing. Also, with Generation 5 being brought in, they also made a lot of standalone G5 games, yes?
So like about video games, I saw like that Fandom actually made also some, you can play on the Steam, fan-made stuff. So Hasbro made here video games, this booster, but I think more like in the G5 direction.
Yeah, that's true. They sort of like evolved with this stuff that they found out about us. So what other kind of games? I'm just gonna jump into another into another category. We have a few select games here. Specifically, what I think interesting is the top right here, Equestria Online, a game that officially doesn't exist anymore. Hasbro didn't take this one down. This game doesn't exist anymore because internal drama. That's another story. But a sequel exists, and it's interesting that they even apparently found a screenshot of someone making a 3D model of a pony. So they really took just about anything they could find, yes?
Bronies still work, also they also didn't take down like Legends of Equestria.
That's correct. They don't do that because they just talking about the profit thing again. They're trying to specifically not to take donations, just to make sure they do not get taken down. The only revenue that this game gets is revenue off of the website existing in advertisement. That's the only thing. And if they did more, that would be dangerous for them. That's them being careful, and they should be. Other kind of category of art, cosplay. There's a lot of cosplay in this folder as well. It's interesting to see the diversity of cosplays they found as well, which is kind of interesting. And again, they had to do a lot of digging online to find those specific pictures. What other kind of art? Fan animations. Also something you find in this document. Of course, Button's Adventures showed up there. We understand. Snowdrop was interesting that they found that animation relatively early. Pink Fluffy Unicorn shows up in there. Derpy Wants Muffins is sort of like this jokey animation where Derpy gets angry because he doesn't get muffins. And yeah, it's interesting to see them, find these things and deciding they're so important that they should collect this for the future. What else was there? That big one, memes. Memes was one of the most important thing for them, and we're going to talk about that because memes became popular around the time that the Brony fandom became popular, and a lot of people sort of believe that memes may have been responsible for the initial fame of the Brony fandom, and there may be some truth to that. And let's see, what other memes? I decided to dedicate another page to memes just because it was so many. And yeah, look at this. Some of these memes are extremely old, but it's sort of nice to see them archiving this. It's nice to see them go all the way back and collect this stuff. But why memes specifically? Well, this is an interesting one for me because, again, this is in this document that is inside of Hasbro, and then there's some boomer has to explain to another one what's a meme. It's nice to have this in the document to be able to explain what does this actually mean. And yeah, a meme is a piece of content or an idea that's passed from person to person, changing and evolving along the way. And that's sort of an interesting one because for them, being able to appease us, maybe memes may be a thing they respect, and maybe that's something that they use. And they're, coincidentally enough, in G5, there's been a couple of times when they have incorporated memes from outside into their own show and made songs about that, but we're going to get to that in just a little bit. So, yeah, memes are interesting because they're running jokes, and this fandom is attracted to them, be it with random characters having slightly different eyes, be it a character who's playing a DJ beat thing, and those running jokes are sort of things that we sort of get attracted to. And on the right side we have rituals like Bro Hoof or Welcome to the Root. A lot of those things have basically stuck with the fandom since conception, and they conveniently enough realized that, and episode 100 of G4 basically is a culmination of them sort of taking every single meme and making them popular. And that just sort of shows us that they sort of understand a little bit about the interaction with how we interact with each other, and I think that's sort of something we're celebrating to me. So, what have they done with all the things that they found? This is the time when we're going to start to take a bit of a peek into the future. And memes are still something that they do, and this is an interesting I found. This was apparently a meme that I'm pretty sure inspired them, and the joke basically here is you have these Let's Players, whenever one of them sees banana in any game, they have to basically stand there and shout, "Bananas, my bananas," and they decided to make a song which I'm pretty sure was inspired by this. Let's listen to this.
This shit is bananas. B-U-L-U-F-E-T.
Coincidence? I think not. Yeah, and these sort of silly things that happen on the internet, Hasbro certainly took a little bit of inspiration, decided to take their own spin on it, and this is not just the only time that this happened, but it's sort of their way of continuing the whole, let's take some random memes and put them into our show and see what happens, them sort of trying to replicate the past. What other things have they learned from the past? OCs. We have learned that OCs have been popular in the past, and their way of answering this was to allow fans to incorporate their own OCs. In this particular instance, we have a total of 9 different characters in Generation 5 that have been inspired by fans, and these were sort of done in contests where they could submit these OCs and then were able to have them in the show. But it was not so transparent, and this is the one time where we're going to have to give Hasbro a little bit of shade, because sometimes in these contracts, it wasn't always entirely clear that in submitting these characters they would be forfeiting their rights, and at least at the beginning they weren't entirely clear about that. They were a little bit more open about that in future endeavors, but it's important for them to do this in the future, because you have to build trust, and you can do that by being honest with people and telling them what these characters are used for. And if they don't do that, that can be a little bit painful to all the people that sort of trust Hasbro, or that interact with Hasbro specifically and their ponies. What else have they learned in Generation 5? They have learned a few things that are important when it comes to story writing. This is them sort of trying things. Lore continuity, that's sort of a new one, then going ahead and basically continuing into the past of Generation 4. That is something they've never done. Usually, all of these generations, there's almost a twilight. Between G1 and G4, there's almost always a twilight, there's always a spike, and so on, and a lot of the character names are also sort of the same personalities taken. And in G5, they tried to do things a little bit differently, tried to create deeper characters with a little bit more stretched background stories. Problems that these characters have been modernized to sort of how we operate, how we think, with even a pop culture inspired main character being Pit Paddle, someone who's stuck to their phone, who does all the things that we sort of hear about, that we don't go outside, that we don't touch grass, that we basically stay at home and do nothing else. And they took this kind of character, of course, sort of as an inspiration to modernize, to sort of make the ponies grow up, make the characters grow up, and be with the time, so to say. And it's interesting to know that they, at least try to stay with us. And the question now remains, if we take a look at the bottom line, how's My Little Pony doing now? And see if we can take a look at the sort of potential that the show, this whole franchise even has in the future. Hasbro answered that themselves not too long ago, just last May in the licensing world. The licensing world is a magazine where basically companies can talk about their brands and how they're doing. They made a statement on My Little Pony that's actually pretty extensive, and they really advise you to look at that if you're interested. But I decided to take out a few notable and important confirmations. My Little Pony celebrates the 15th anniversary. Notice how they're not talking about any specific generation, but of course 15 years, the only generation right now that has its 15th anniversary is G4. And they're announcing collaborations, including Beanie Bouncers. That is something I ironically seen an advertisement yesterday when I was at the hotel. And there was a Pinkie Pie version of that. So they're making new products, and it's nice to see them sort of bouncing back to Generation 4 and sort of trying to make new products. And they follow up on this, that the brand continues to shine in fashion and lifestyle with collaborations. A lot of this is of course done in China, and one of the big ones was cards. Apparently, I don't know if this is true, if this is something they were able to confirm, but apparently 3 billion packs sold. That's a ridiculous number if this is true. But yeah, a lot of this, the statement of course is something that Hasbro specifically says for them. I don't know if this is bloated or if the number is true, but if that's true, then of course you may be able to at some point be seeing these cards and other products coming to Europe and other, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen in China they also also have these designed like the pony cars, and they also make commercials over there.
Yeah.
And yes, new stuff. So there's also like a big hype over the about G4.
Yeah.
They have dedicated shops to these brands.
Yeah, this is
Literally.
it's true. And yeah, where you see I put this sort of bracket, a lot of various brand names, and we're listing a sheer amount of brands that I was no way able to list all. But a lot of these were G4 collabs, and they're basically making more toys because one problem G5 happened, not a lot of toys were around, and they sort of tried to come up with a way to solve this. They of course also made a statement on G5 and Tell Your Tale specifically. And I want to take a look at this top right picture that is also taken from this article itself, and apparently they really like Tell Your Tale. If you look up the numbers, Tell Your Tale did pretty well if you go by the performance and things that they did, and it was sort of modernized according to the short life of how sort of videos and stuff, everything's getting shorter. Think about YouTube Shorts, think about TikToks, all those short form entertainments. Hasbro sort of tried to lean into that. But it's interesting to see this a statement in the middle with even more to come in 2026. So are we going to get more Tell Your Tale or a different animation show? That is unfortunately not something we can confirm, but we know for a fact, according to that statement, 2026, ponies are going to be back. In what form? We don't know. But the thing is, if ponies are going to be back next year, they have to be working on them right now. That's the thing, they have to be working on them right now. And I think there's been a couple of statements to be thrown around recently. I don't know if they're true, but it's something to watch out for. So if ponies are going to be back, that'd be pretty interesting. Sort of another quick thing I want to touch about is there's been sort of leaks around, been going around for G5, and it's sort of a sample for us to see, different kinds of creators and viewers and people in the fandom coming together and work together on something like this. It's great to see community effort, because that's what we've always been good at, is working together, putting differences aside, and making things happen. And here we go to the last sort of slides. We have about 5 slides remaining. Let's take a look at the future. Are we going to get more G4 in terms of show? Is the show going to continue? Well, there's a few arguments to be made in favor, against, and what I think is to be made against, of course, is the last time we've seen the G4 ponies on doing their thing was about 6 years ago, and at least the show in terms of plot I don't believe is going to be continuing. We might see the characters again. Hasbro loves reusing characters. Yes, over here.
About continuing G4, there was a live action movie announced.
Yes, about that. That brings us to
2027.
Yeah, that brings me to this third point right here, reusing characters. They love reusing characters. They've not only done this in My Little Pony, but Transformers as sort of an example where they're basically using the same characters for like the last decades.
Yeah.
And yeah, if a character works, then they may be redoing it. And also sort of the success with toys is also an interesting one. But at least the show, I don't believe, will continue because G4 had an ending. That's the simple one. if something like had a good ending and a solid ending, why would you dig it up again? There's no reason. So I think at least this scenario to me is unlikely. We're going to probably see the characters again in terms of toys in the live action movie, but the show G4 as it is, I don't believe will continue. Yes?
Maybe the lore has ended, but can there be some, I would say, spin-off, like more daily lives, or what happened between the time jump from the last episode, or where some questions are answered, like who is Luster Dawn? Is she a daughter of whomever? So I think there's enough content that could be made.
There's potential for characters, but I don't know if they're going to favor going into this small slot or making something new. Because there is a scenario that I think is most likely out of all of these. We're going to go to another one that I hear often being thrown around, and also something I'm not entirely sure is true. Is G5 going to continue? I don't know. G5 has also been super silent for a year, and it didn't have many toys. That's sort of one of the big things. So if they like suddenly had to produce a whole bunch of toys for a show that isn't even running right now, that would be pretty difficult. But on the other side, we have a lot of unused material. And G5 didn't have a real ending, but again, this also, to me, is not really going to happen. Instead, I think something more like this is a little bit more probable. Rebranding. What is rebranding? Just taking a couple of seconds to explain this. It's basically when you're deciding to make a big change to your brand. The way that you've done things in the past, you're going to be like, let's do something completely different and just make it a little new. And I think this is going to include a couple of these reasons. Our ponies have been absent for a while. The last time we've had this long of a break in ponies was when we got a new generation. So I believe they're doing something quite new, and maybe they're working on a new series, I believe, maybe on a new line of toys, and that's actually sort of founded a little bit. Toys, as it stands, are growing in popularity, but the second reason to me is also something sort of new. This demand for retro toys from Generation 4, something they've never had to deal with before. And them suddenly having to go back and realize, wait a minute, what are we going to do with these past ponies? Do we dig them up again and make toys? Something they were never confronted with, but inevitably it makes money, so they have to talk about it, because remember at the beginning we learned Hasbro's losing money, and if Hasbro needs to make money, this may be one of those options, is to think about how they're going to be treating these past ponies with more toys if they are so popular. The third thing, and that is also thinking about what Hasbro is doing. Hasbro is an entertainment company above all, and if entertainment is changing, then Hasbro of course has to also think about how they adapt to it. If videos and episodes are becoming shorter, if people like short form content, if the way entertainment changes, like back then in the 1980s, toys and a lot of physical things were a lot more attractive. Now it's all digital, and of course Hasbro needs to think about how they sort of transitioned into something like this. And My Little Pony so far, I sort of touched that a while ago, is when they sort of reused names and characters. And they've always done that, except for G5 being sort of the exception. So there's some reasoning that they might be trying to find a middle ground. Maybe we're going to be seeing some characters again. They could be doing that because, again, they make money and they seem to be popular. So Hasbro could very well go ahead and bring them back in some other shape or form, maybe in a new kind of series. And the reason at the bottom I also think is sort of a big one to me, because even if G5 Tell Your Tale isn't happening, the comics have still been going this entire time, and they still are. So there's a good way that Hasbro might be able to sort of incorporate these comics into the way that they show off these ponies, and maybe make them sort of part of the next generation a little bit more. Yes, over there?
Sometimes the TV show, the producers have scripts ready and for actual episodes, but for some reason or another, the TV company or the toy company both say, no, screw you, we're not using that. Mm-hmm. And then they having to pump it out as comics, which are actually quite popular. The Simpsons did this, Thomas did this, multiple fandoms did this, which actually proved that we don't know everything that goes behind the scenes. So that's my assumption is that these scripts, some of these scripts probably will be dug out, renewed, and get used as probably even another generation.
That's possible as well. A lot of times they will take this up because it's stuff that they've made in the past, and that would say a little bit, yes.
Yeah, like about the comics, like I haven't seen that much like about the comics, about G5 because G4 had a lot of comics, and like 2026 there's coming there's a new license for new comics.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I don't know what's the issue about bringing them into new generation.
It's been sort of interesting. This comics sort of have been separate. I recently also got into the G5 comics a little bit, and apparently those were a lot of sort of stories that sort of accompanied the storyline of G5, not adding anything new, but sort of adding things like explaining what happened to Cloudsdale. That is something that is explained in the comics, doesn't appear in Tell Your Tale, doesn't appear in Make Your Mark. So a lot of these sort of plot holes were filled with the comics, and I think that is sort of a missed opportunity to me, that they don't talk about these things in the show. All right, final slide. Oh, yes, this to me makes the most sense out of the ones we discussed. So let's sort of summarize everything that we know so far. So going by the statement earlier from Hasbro, 2026 Ponies will be back. Going by what Hasbro said by their own words, Ponies will be back next year. Toys is inevitably something Hasbro has to push. Remember, they're trying to make money, and they just realized this thing makes the money, so they're going to do it more. And if toys are successful in China, there's nothing stopping them from bringing them to other people to make more money. And the third one is sort of, well, Hasbro still very much believes in the brand. They wouldn't be doing all this development with China, potentially pushing into a new generation, if they still didn't believe that My Little Pony had a future. But there's one thing I didn't talk about yet. What? Our role in this as Bronies. That's the big one to us. Bronies will still be creating. We have musicians still making music. We have artists still making art. We have Bronies putting themselves out there for conventions. And that is still going to continue, even in droughts, even if there is no My Little Pony. If you know, the past 2 years, even if there was no My Little Pony, Bronies have still been creating. And I think that's something worth celebrating. And I don't think that's going to stop at any point. So that's also something that I believe is going to be the future. We're going to be part of this future. And that's pretty much how I believe this is going to be going. And that brings me to the end. So if there's any questions, any sort of ideas, no, okay, that wasn't a question.
We have 7 minutes for questions.
Okay, so we have what did you say?
7 minutes for questions.
Okay, yeah, over there.
What's your favorite insider out of the Brony community?
My favorite insider?
A joke.
I'm trying to think. Probably cider. Cider sort of is a thing that we sort of popularized, because a lot of times cider, if you ask people, like, at least I'm from Germany, if you tell people I want cider, they're looking like, what is it? But I'm pretty sure we sort of made that popular. Any other questions?
Like in England, cider is alcoholic. So in England they dubbed it with juice.
That's true. Okay, I think I saw something over there, yes? Yes, you.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have any idea of why they dropped the ball so hard on G5 when it comes to merchandise?
You mean that, like, just canceling the show on the spot?
Yeah, but also just the outroll toys they produce is very limited.
Yeah, that's a good point, because companies don't usually do that, because they basically had a lot of content that is unused and that's come out through leaks, and the good reason for them is to be like, let's try something different. Let's do something entirely different, maybe things change. But one of the big changes that happened during G5 is that they have a new CEO. That's another thing. That changed because the previous CEO passed away. So there's a good chance this new CEO decided to be like, let's do something entirely different. And that's also going to be sort of an interesting one, with the new CEO sort of at the head of My Little Pony and Hasbro. How they're going to interact with us is up to the future. We're going to see that come, a new generation of ponies. Over here.
Actually, with the CEO thing, did he sell off all assets like Golden Media, which the previous CEO specifically bought to make it a bit more broadcasting?
Okay.
So that it was kind of a shot in the foot at times.
Yeah.
I mean, the G5 had this bad quality in the beginning. Basically, they shipped it to smaller companies to burn in the material like Golden Media, which the movie itself, and the movie is good.
Yeah.
So the CEO kind of messed them up by selling
pretty
valuable assets.
Yeah, that's pretty difficult for them to go ahead and throw these assets around. I mean, they need to develop a bit of consistency. That's what G5 to me sort of.
If you the statement, we are a toy company and not a broadcast company, and that's why we are toys and not movies.
That's an interesting part because Hasbro themselves is an entertainment company. That's sort of their official designation, so it's not just toys. It's interesting to see because often you have these sort of conflicts in these big companies where a CEO of one brand is like, hey, let's push toys, and another CEO might do this, so depending on whoever's on the head, the brand will take a different direction, and that's essentially sort of company politics in a way. Over there in the back?
In G5, the very last episodes, there was actually three old characters.
Could you repeat that a little bit louder? I didn't understand you.
They actually brought some old characters from the previous generation back.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of references in G5 specifically, also to.
Yeah, but you said the words they were to be used in old pre-generation 5 characters.
Yeah, they could be, if that makes any sense. It's difficult to describe a little bit in my opinion right now. Any other question down here?
I find it quite weird that they dropped it like this, G5, because they did it also similar to Equestria Girl.
Mm-hmm.
It was just dropped when G4 ended without any ending. And if I remember correctly, they had like at the end of the third movie, like 7 sparks coming out of the portal, and only 5 of them ever were explained where they went to. So I find it kind of weird that they did this because it was obviously not minded from directly, it was a spin-off, but I think it still would have made money.
Yeah, with these points sometimes they'll go ahead and make these sort of rash decisions where they're like, you know, this maybe they realized that Equestria Girls was not their main thing anymore, and they realized maybe we should be focusing on our main brand. And this is sort of a little bit sunk cost fallacy, where you're like, hey, you've already produced all of these things, and you could be making money of them, but at the end of the day, that money for all those things has already been spent. That money is gone, and if they could make any more with it is a big question if they want to continue that, because that again costs them more to sort of bring out again. And at the end, that money that they would be making might be a lot less than them having to go ahead and buy into it.
So you think that they just quit it because they thought, okay, G5 would just bring more money or would be more efficient?
They decided to focus on something because G5 didn't have a spin-off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so like the writing of also at the end of G4, the writing was also like starting to get different. I mean, some episodes are not bad from season 8 and 9, and then when they changed the CEO, I don't know why they actually changed the writing it overall, but G5, like they wanted to try also a bit connected with G4, but you haven't actually seen a lot of G4.
Yeah, that's true. It's sort of difficult. Like I said earlier, when leadership changes, that can mean, hey, suddenly we're going to write differently, we're going to have a different style in our show, and of course it means people come and go. Like even though if My Little Pony had 9 generations, it had different writers, different animators, different styles, and that sort of can change the way that the show sort of works with us, and yeah, that's sort of a difficult spot that they've been.
So like you've seen like this Twilight in G5, but you didn't actually know about or it wasn't told more about that.
Yeah, this is one thing where I'm going to have to come back to the leaks. That was explained in the 4th special. They were going to explain this, but again, this is one of those things where the context is missing, and so we're basically left hanging. And I think that's sort of something that I hope in the future we're going to get a little bit more consistency. Like things like Cloudsdale coming back in the comics, a lot of those things just seem super weird, but if Hasbro would explain these things, if those were explained in the storytelling, we wouldn't be left so confused.
Sorry, could you clarify which special were you referring to there?
That was the 4th special of Tell Your Tale.
What were the things? that was one of the ones that was going to be produced.
Yes, there is. That is actually something you can find online. That is, there's like a group effort of leakers basically, and they sort of like put in the voices of the animatics that they were able to find, and basically the story there is that Twilight does appear there. I've tried to not have myself been spoiled by this yet, but I'm told Twilight in her physical form comes back in that. So it's a pretty interesting thing to see, and I think it's sort of a little bit of a sad thing that they don't sort of explain this a little bit earlier and wait this long.
Mm-hmm. I have one question regarding just regarding the nature of G6, just with regards to rebranding. Considering that there was a statement released the other day that someone from Peppa Pig is going to be working on G6.
Mm-hmm. I've remembered that.
How do you? What form do you think what form do you think it's going to take, perhaps, the G6 iteration? Like, do you think it's going to have a shift in the focus to the very, very young viewers, or is there going to be some room? Basically, what I'm asking is, do you think there's a risk that it's going to become unwatchable for anyone over around 5?
I think they might be going a little bit back to the roots with this one, because before Generation 4 happened, they had around 30 years of success with a specific target audience. I believe that they're going to try to sort of find a middle ground, because of course we as Bronies were vocal, but the main way that they make money is by selling things to younger audiences.
Do you think it would go so far as to match the audience of Peppa Pig, or will it be for kids slightly older than that?
I think they're going to go a little bit over than that, because they've sort of shown that even in G4 that they can like tackle modern problems, like specifically season 5, episode 1, where they talked a little bit about a starlight glimmer and basically communism or taking over the town, and sort of these sort of grown-up things. Hasbro has shown that they're able to do that, and I think they're going to be doing that.
Okay, but with G5 they didn't tackle that so much. That was a little bit more in line with the older series in terms of G3.
In G5 they didn't do that much. We basically have sort of openly doing their thing. We have a little bit other grown-up topics though, like when it is the Earth Ponies versus Pegasi versus the Unicorns, the different races not getting along, fighting, all of those things. So
does that come up in the show in G5?
Yes, with the races fighting. That's like one of the basically main plots for the first movie. And yeah, I think that's sort of.
I'm talking about the series specifically. Explore anything like that.
In the first episode of Make Your Mark, I believe that's also sort of addressed.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to take the last question over here, and then we're done.
I'm asking about, can I get the achievement for the what's the magic for that?
Oh yeah, achievement, who wants the achievement can come to me and I will scan badges and you will be able to scan badges as well.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so with that we're done with the panel. Thank you everyone.